This video is sponsored by the Ultimate Freelancing Bundle by StudyWebDevelopment.com, which gives you everything you need to start your own freelancing business, including a 130-page in-depth guide, invoicing and client proposal templates, website templates, an SEO checklist, and much more. Visit the link in the description and use the code BRAD25 to get 25% off. Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this video I want to show you how to implement smooth scrolling on a landing page. And what I mean by that is we have a nav bar here, and if I click one of these such as about, it'll take me down to the about section and it'll have a nice smooth scroll effect. Okay, so I'm sure you've seen this on many websites and applications. Now I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do it. The first way I want to focus on is pure CSS, no JavaScript at all, and that's by using the scroll behavior property, which this is the MDN docs and it shows you an example. So basically this is just auto, but if we set it to smooth, it will give us that nice smooth scroll effect. Now there's some other properties I want to show you as well. One of them being a snap effect, which is scroll snap type. And what that does is if I take the scroll bar and I go, like, let's say right here, and I let go, you'll see that it snaps into place. Whatever one is more in the viewport is the one that it's going to snap to. So that's pretty cool as well. And then we also can control it with the arrow keys. I can go up and down with the arrow keys. So this is fantastic. The only thing is browser compatibility. So if I go to caniuse.com and we type in scroll dash behavior, you'll see that it's in Firefox, Chrome, and Opera, but it's not yet implemented in Safari, Edge, and Internet Explorer. So that, of course, is the downside. Now, even if you were to just use this method in, let's say, Safari, let me just go to Safari real quick, and we'll visit that same page. Now, the smooth scrolling isn't going to work, but it still gives you the functionality of taking you to that area. So it's not like your site's going to break if you were to use this CSS property. Now, I am going to show you 2 other methods that are completely cross-compatible with all browsers. One is using jQuery, and a better solution than that is to use a very lightweight script called Smoothscroll. Now, you could do this with vanilla JavaScript, but it's a lot of code to do something so simple. You have to write your own ease function and so on. Some other options are to use a framework. If you're using like Bootstrap or some other CSS framework, many of those have JavaScript widgets that will allow you to do this as well. And then there's plenty of other scripts, but I think that Smooth Scroll is one of the best. It's one of the easiest and one of the lightest. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to actually create this landing page from scratch, which shouldn't take too long. It'll take about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to do all the HTML and CSS. So if you don't want to do that or watch that, I'm going to put a timestamp right down below, and you can skip that and go right to, adding the smooth scroll feature. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to jump into VS Code. I just have an index.html, style CSS, and a main.js. Okay, and they're all completely empty. And the reason I want to do this from scratch, as most of the stuff that I do, is because I want you guys to learn other stuff as well. Like, for instance, we'll be using Flexbox. So if you're not that comfortable with Flexbox, you can see how it's implemented and learn other stuff that isn't the main focus of the video. So let's get started. I'm just going to use Emmet here. I'm going to do exclamation enter, and that will give us a boilerplate. And let's just change the title to, we'll say, Smooth Scroll landing page. All right, and then we're going to bring in our CSS. So let's add a link tag to style.css. So the HTML is pretty simple. We're going to have a container. Okay, that's going to wrap everything. We're going to have a nav bar, so I'm going to use the HTML5 nav tag here and give it a class of nav bar. I'm using Emmet. And let's do a UL. Let's do a list item with a link, which is going to go to hash home. Okay, and then we're going to copy this down a couple times, 4 links, and let's do about, and this will be service, and of course you can change these if you want, and contact contact. All right, so under the nav, we're going to have our sections, our 4 sections, which are going to correspond to these IDs. So let's do section with the ID of home. And we're going to do an H1. We'll just say, welcome to my site. And let's do a paragraph. And in here, I'm just going to do lorem 15. And that will give me 15 words of dummy text. Okay, then we'll go ahead and just copy this down. We need 4 of them. Second one's going to be about. We'll change the title as well to about. And let's see, this one's going to be service. Whoops. So service. And then this one is going to be contact. Okay, and that's it. That's the HTML. So I'll save that. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up. I'm using Live Server, which is an extension for VS Code. And there it is. So very ugly, no CSS at all. So let's jump into style.css. And like I said, I'm going to implement the whole smooth scroll thing after we get the site, the main styles. So let's go start off with a reset here. So I'm going to set everything to have a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. And then let's style the body. So we're going to do font, family. I'm going to use Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif as my font stack. And I'm going to set the background to a dark gray, and let's set the color to white. All right, and I'll set the line height. Let's do line height 1.6. And I'm going to set the height of the body to 100 viewport heights. Okay, so this is gonna matter when we're using the scroll behavior. Now, we're also going to want to remove the scroll bars from the body completely, and then we're going to put the scroll back on the y-axis on the container, but we're going to do that afterwards. So I'll just leave that as it is for now. Now for the container, I'm going to set the width and height to 100%. Okay, so it takes up the whole body. And then this is where the CSS smooth scroll properties will go. Okay, so I'll put those in after. Now, next thing I'm going to style is the navbar. So we have a class of navbar, and we want to position it fixed because we always want it to be at the top. Otherwise, smooth scrolling is kind of pointless. So we want it at the top, 0 position. I'm going to set the z index to 1 so that it's always on top of the rest of the content. I'm also going to display it as flex. So the UL inside will be a flex item. And then let's set the width to be 100%. Let's set the height to 60 pixels. And for the background, I want it to be somewhat transparent, so I'm going to use RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. So I want it black, so 000, excuse me, for red, green, blue. And then for the alpha value, let's do 0.7. So that'll give it a little bit of transparency. Okay, so now let's do the elements inside the navbar. We'll go ahead and do the UL. So let's say navbar UL, and let's display that as a flex box so that the inner list items are flex items that we can align and stuff like that. So let's say list style. We want to remove any bullets, so we'll set that to none. We're also going to set the width to 100%, and let's justify content to the center. Okay, we want the nav items to be in the center, or the whole UL to be in the center. So if we take a look, you'll see we have our bar, it has some transparency, and we have all of our list items. We have our UL in the middle. So now let's do the list items themselves. So navbar UL li. And I'm just going to separate them a bit. So I'm going to add margin 0 on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right, and then padding, I'm just going to do 1 rem all around. Okay, and then for the links, let's say navbar UL lia. So for the links, I'm going to remove the underline. So we want text decoration none. Let's make them uppercase. So text transform uppercase. And then the color, I'm just going to make very light gray, almost white. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do with the nav bar is the hover state. So we'll add hover, and I'm going to set the color to sky blue. All right, so we'll save that. Let's check it out. And there's our nav bar. So now we want to move on to the sections, which should take up the whole viewport for each section. So let's start off just styling section. We're also going to want section H1, and I probably should have used SAS. Section P. The reason I don't use SAS a lot in like landing page tutorials and stuff is because I know some people are just getting into CSS, so I don't want to confuse them. But there's a lot of cases where I would use SAS if it were, you know, my project in production. So the paragraph inside a section, I'm going to set the font size to 1.5 rem. The H1, I'm going to set to 4 rem. Okay, so now let's style each section. They're going to be flex boxes. However, we don't want rows because we don't want the H1 and then the paragraph to be aligned next to it. We want them on top of each other. So we're going to set the flex direction to column instead of row, which is the default. All right, and then we want everything in the center. So we want align items to the center. We want to justify content to the center. So that will align both horizontal and vertically to the center. And then the text itself, I'm also going to align to the center. All right, then we want a width of 100% and a height of 100 viewport heights. Okay, no matter how the browser is sized, there's always 100 viewport heights, and we want to take up all of them. Okay, so we want it to fill the page. Let's see. So the last thing we want to do, actually, let's check this out. So we'll save it, and this is what it looks like. So each section takes up 100 viewport heights, which is the whole viewport. And if I click a navigation link here, it will go to that section. Okay, but we just don't have the smooth scroll yet. So let's add the background images because you can't really tell each section apart. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this in because it's very simple. All we're doing is taking each ID and setting a background URL. Now I have the code in the description. I put it inside of a code pen with these exact images, so you can grab the links from there if you want. So we're just setting no repeat, putting them in the center, and covering that whole space. Okay, so we just have our home, about, service, and contact. So if I save this and we check it out, now we have our background images. All right. So now that we have all that stuff done, let's jump in and let's add the smooth scrolling. So first thing I'm going to do is on the body, I'm actually going to remove the scroll bars altogether. So I'm going to set overflow to hidden. If I save and I go back, notice there's no scroll bars. I can't use my scroll button. What we want to do is go to the container, and we want to set overflow on the y-axis, which is up and down, which is vertical, and we want to set that to be able to scroll. Okay, so if I save that, now we have our scroll bars. Okay, and inside here, I'm going to add the scroll dash behavior property, and I want to set that to smooth. Okay, now just doing that, if I go back and I hit about service, you'll see that now it works. So it's as simple as that to implement the smooth scroll. But of course, it's not completely cross-browser compatible. Now, we don't have that effect, the snap effect right away. Like if I go right here, it'll actually stop here. I want to get that snap effect. So there's two things we need to do. One is add the property of scroll snap type and set that to Y because we're dealing with the Y-axis. You can also do this horizontally, and then set mandatory. Okay, you have mandatory and you have proximity. Mandatory is what we want because we want it to mandatory snap to that section. Now, just doing that isn't going to work. We have to add one more thing to the section, one more property, which is going to be scroll snap align, and we want to align center. Okay, so now just doing that, if I go back, let's just reload this. And now if I take the scroll bar and I move it here and I let go, it's going to go into whatever one is further in the viewport. Okay, same thing if I use my scroll wheel. So I'm going to scroll up and let go, and it goes right back down into place. If I pass that threshold, it will go to the next one up. So I really like this. I do. I hope that it gets put in all browsers fairly soon. So with that done, let's move on to another solution. So I'm going to show you how to do this using jQuery. So I'm going to disable what we just did with CSS. So one thing I'll do is comment out the overflow hidden in the body. I'm going to comment out these three right here, and I guess we'll leave the snap. We can leave that. That's fine. But if I save this, it's no longer going to work. So if I go about service, that stuff doesn't work. The snap doesn't work. Okay, so we're back at square one. So let's implement jQuery. So I'm going to grab the jQuery CDN. And one thing I want to mention is you don't want to use the slim version because we're using the animate method, and the slim version I'm pretty sure doesn't have the animate method. So we're going to grab the minified version. So I'll copy that link to the CDN. We'll go to our index page, and right above the body, let's put in a script source and paste that in. And then I just want to add a script source to our main.js. All right, so this is going to take about 15 lines of code or so. So I'm going to put a comment here, and I'll say option 2. I'll say jQuery smooth scroll. So we want to grab the links in the nav bar. So let's put in jQuery. We want to grab class nav bar A. All right, we want to add an event, so we're going to say on click. Okay, now this is going to take a callback, so we'll put a comma here with a callback function, which takes in an event parameter. So inside here, we want to test to see if there's a hash, meaning the hash home, hash about, whatever. Actually, what we'll do is do a console log of this dot hash, and we'll save it. And then if we go back to our project and open up our Chrome tools and go to the console and I hit about, you'll see that we get that hash value. So back in VS Code, we want to test for that. We want to see if that exists. So we're going to say if this dot hash is not equal to nothing, okay, so if it's not equal to an empty string, then we want to prevent the default behavior. So e dot prevent default. And then I'm going to put that hash value into a variable. All right, and then what we want to do is target the body. So we're going to put in here HTML. Let's do HTML body. And we want to call the animate method. Okay, so dot animate. And inside animate, it's going to take an object, and one of the properties we can add is scroll top. Okay, so we want to scroll from the top, and we're going to take the hash value, and we want to call the offset method, and then say dot top. Okay, so it's going to scroll down from the top. Now the second parameter after this object is the speed that you want to scroll. So I'm going to say 800, which is 800 milliseconds. Okay, and that's it. That's all we have to do. So we'll save that, and let's go back. Close that up, and now if I hit about, you'll see we get our smooth scroll. Okay, so pretty simple. Now we obviously don't have the snap effect. Also, if I hit the down, up and down, it doesn't go to each section like it would with the CSS. So we don't have that either. But it is cross-platform. I'll go ahead and open it in what is it, Safari, if I can find it. So paste that in, and you can see that now it works. Okay, so that works in Safari as well. So another solution is to use Smoothscroll. So I'm just going to search for Smoothscroll. It's the first GitHub link here, and it's pretty popular. It has over 4,000 stars. And to use it, we just need to include the CDN. So we have a bunch of options here. This will always give you the latest version. I'm going to just grab the specific version here, which is the latest, which is right now is 14.0. And I'm just going to comment out, excuse me, I'm going to comment out all the jQuery stuff, including the CDN right here. And I'm going to put in script source and paste in the Smoothscroll. Actually, I already have the script tag. Just paste that in. All right, and then as far as the JavaScript, if we look at the documentation, all we have to do is this. We just have to set a variable to a new Smoothscroll instance, and then pass in this a tag or whatever the selector we want to use. So I'm actually just going to copy that, and let's say option 3 Smoothscroll Script, and we'll go ahead and paste that in. I'm just going to change this to const though. And we can also put in a second parameter of options, and we can set the speed if we want, which I'll set to 800. And then for this will work on any link, so I'm just going to add in the class of navbar in front of this. So let's save that, and now we should get the same effect. So if I go to about, scrolls down, good. All right, so that's going to be it, guys. I will put I'll put a link in the description to the code pen, which will have all 3 solutions in it. So if you want to use any of those, or if you want to look for a different one, it's just a really nice effect to have if you're going to have a single page, a single landing page. All right, so please like this video if you liked it, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, one of the best, if not the best resource I can refer you to for starting a freelance business is at studywebdevelopment.com/freelancing. The creator Kyle shared it with me, and I can personally vouch that this bundle is well worth it. You get a 130-page guide to freelancing, and it comes with things like invoice templates, client proposals, HTML and CSS templates, a portfolio website, access to a private Facebook community, and much more. So use the code BRAD25 to get 25% off today.